Hey everybody, welcome to another video here. Doing a bit of a different topic today from my normal GNumeric stuff, which you should check out. I am involved with the Lumber game, and so I've been trying to think of a project that would be kind of fun to help me better track things, and I guess one of the ideas that came up is developing a script to check the price of wood at a local Home Depot or Lowe's on a reoccurring basis. And anyway, I thought it was pretty neat of an idea, and so I was just going to walk you through what that script was, and you fellows can think of other projects and things that could maybe get use from something like this, right? It doesn't have to apply directly to this, but the concepts are helpful. So here we have Home Depot's website, and I just selected somewhat of a generic type of wood. It's one of their best sellers, and you can see the price here. So you can typically, when you go to a website like this, what you'll want to do is look at the network traffic. So let me refresh. And you can see if they're making any specific API calls. So far, when I've looked through this, there's no definitive API calls. Now, one of them I did see was like a recommendation, which had a recommendation list of others. So let's see if I can find that in here. Is it in here? Compare, no. Typically you want something that's got the name of the website. You could see all this junk when you go into Home Depot. You don't realize how much junk is taking place on here. Saw it the other day. Get user ID, Quantum, Target. Is there a Home Depot? There should be a Home. I could have sworn it was in here. Depot. Anyway, the first, long story short, the first thing you should be doing is looking at this sort of stuff to see if Home Depot, for whatever reason, is making an API call to see if it's generating. So you can see this is one of the first requests, and what it's pulling back is essentially the pre-rendered, meaning this isn't static site rendered, or it's not making a call out for the specific data we're looking for. And again, there was a recommendation thing on here before. So let me close that out. This is always a nifty tool, but essentially what we're wanting to do is, since it's not making an API call that we can just leverage, we want to run a scraping script where it will go to this website and it will pull this cost. And really what we're trying to track is, I want to have a script that runs every, let's say, 12 hours, right? So essentially I want it to make a call out to this website, scrape this number, and then save it to a file. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but again, this can be very powerful, and you can apply it to a bunch of different websites. So let me pull up the script. So I'm calling it Lumber Price Tracker, and here's really the inner workings of the script, and then we'll get this up and running. The first piece is Selenium. So Selenium, for those who do not know, is an automation tool, and essentially what it does is it leverages the web drivers so that you can then do some automation. So it's essentially, you can build bots to do certain things on the web, right? And I think additionally you can do other things outside the web, but you have to give some higher level permissions and yada yada. So anyway, typically I use this for web things. They actually have a cool add in. If you haven't checked this out, you should. So anyway, that's the first piece. That's really the workhorse of all this. This is really the thing that's allowing for the browser to be leveraged. The next thing is this node schedule. So we'll talk about this a little later, but this is just an npm package. It's pretty cool. What it does is it allows you to essentially schedule something for a just a reoccurring job. So I'll show you what that looks like. But on the command line, it just, right now I have it set. We'll schedule for a certain time frame, and it will run the job over and over again over that time frame. And so with that, let's go back to the code. So, and then FS is just for file system. This is pretty standard. If you've used Node before, you probably recognize this. This is all written in Node, by the way. Down here, you can see this is calling for the Firefox WebDriver, and then we're pulling the options, and then we're setting it to headless. So this is important. So if you don't have this bunch of code, what will happen is your actual Firefox browser, which we're using the Firefox browser, will actually pop up. We don't want that to happen, so we're setting it to headless, but it essentially is doing the same thing. Here is just that we're adding additional functionality to a string type. Essentially, I'll show you this later, but when you pull back this data in here, so let me open this up. This is kind of a key tool when you're doing this type of stuff, is when you pull back this data, it actually pulls it back in without any dots, right? You can see that, and I'll show you the actual query here, but it's going to come back as $658. So what we're trying to do is, in between the 6 and the 58, we want to insert a decimal point. So that's what this code is going to help us do here. And so here's really the main function, kind of the classic get data. But here you're doing your initial build of the Firefox browser. So what you're trying to do here is you're creating the browser, and then you're setting the options, which we set to options headless, and then it's building. And then here you're going to define actions, so you're going to get the actions from here that you can use later on if need be. Here's the URL, so this is the URL we're calling out to. And so first thing is doing, and again you notice it's async await, so it makes the syntax a little easier to understand. But the first thing is doing is it's gonna call and open up this this website. So it's calling out to here, and it's going to open it up again headless in the browser. And then we're going to wait 10 seconds, or wait a second, I think it's 10 seconds. And the reason why that's important is, this is milliseconds, so you wait a second. The reason why this is important is you want the page to fully render. If you don't wait, you can get an error pretty easily, because the next piece will try to run without, and it won't work successfully. And then here, this is kind of I would say the secret sauce to all of this is this execute script. And what this is doing is it's going to actually execute a script like you would if you go to the console here. So if I go to the console and I type this in, where's it at? There we go. It essentially is doing this in the headless thing. So this is a great, I use this a lot. This is a great tool to test, but what you can do is just try it in here and try to get the result. So what we're essentially doing is a query selector, so standard price. So when you look at the thing, the dev ID is standard price, and what we're getting is just the text content, which ends up being this $6 and 58. And so what we're doing is once we get that text context, so all this is doing is running that and returning that value. We're going to insert a decimal, which is, basically we're just looking at the length and we're going -1 and inserting it. So we know basically the last 2 decimal points will be the cents, right? Regardless of the length of the text. And then here we're just setting a date, and that goes into this data text. So this is essentially what we're going to be tracking. So what it is the date. So this date and time, that way we can kind of timestamp things, the value which we got from the data, and then the URL. This is, again, if I go and add to this, maybe I down here, for example, there's one from Lowe's, so maybe I can do a quick price comparison. If I know one's similar to the other, maybe I could track both. So anyway, the URL was thought to keep track of what website am I requesting this from. And so all we're doing is we're really amending this output file. So before I forget, let me make that file and just call it output.txt, just a blank file. And then essentially once it does that, if it's good, we're going to close the browser. So driver close, that will essentially end the function, and then which was set off by this async, so which should close it. If there's an error, we'll print that and we'll close it as well. And then down here we just have a count, so I'm just setting it to 0. And just before I start the schedule, I just want to run it, so I'm going to do count +++, so that's going to add an additional value to the count, and then I'm going to run get data. It's going to run this function, and then down here I have that node scheduler. So this is the schedule is from the node scheduler. That's what we set, and right now I have it set to every 5 seconds. Well, let me drop that to every 3 seconds. And so after this first one runs, it's going to run every 3 seconds after this. Okay, and all it's doing is essentially it's going to print what count we're on, and then it's going to run get data. And in that function, right, the whole idea is it's going to save it to this output text. So let me pull up a terminal. And so let's get this stuff installed. Whoops. It's not exactly what I wanted. Let's make it a little smaller. Let's make this a little smaller. And I use Lubuntu for any folks who are interested. Okay, so I like to use actually Fish, which is a great terminal, but you don't want to set it as a default because it could cause some errors with some scripts and things. But for what we're doing, it's pretty nifty. Now you do have to have Node installed, right? So keep that in mind. Well, shows you how much I know. Sorry. And you also have to have npm, right? So let me make this bigger so it's a little easier for you guys to see. Can we zoom in? Is there a zoom? Okay. So what we want to do now is we want to first cd over to the folder. So cd documents, cd web projects, Lumber files. Like I said, Fish is pretty nifty in how it does this. And so now we're in the files folder, right? And so since we have this package.js, and I'll show you what that is real quick, is this is kind of the pre-default things for when you do npm int, and we'll do that here. One of the things I like to add is a start, so that if I run npm start, it will automatically start my index file, which is the main here. And then it also has our dependencies. So we have the node scheduler we need to use, and then the Cilium web drivers. So this makes it pretty easy. If I were to, which I'll post in the description, a link to these files. It makes it easy so you guys can download them and install the stuff. So I'm going to do sudo npm install. Well, actually, I'm going to do npm int for ntn int. Yes. Yes. So all that did was just make sure everything's set up correctly. And then I'm going to do sudo npm install, and then I'm going to type in my password. And then what it's doing is now it installed all our dependencies. So you can see it installed quite a bit of stuff, but the main thing is Selenium, and then the node scheduler got installed there. So now that we've done that, we're pretty close to getting this thing running. So now that we have this installed, let me do a clear, and I'll do npm start. And so now it's run one time, just for you guys to reference, right? This is an empty file. And so we will wait a little bit. Okay, so it already ran once. So we got the value. Now the value is slightly different because I'm not this is not where I actually live at, but I can validate that that value is the most current. So let's give it another second. Maybe we'll run one more time. But again, you know, I've used similar things for other things like this. I've done stuff with the TOSC dot, what is it called? Okay. Yep, and then it just did it. So obviously you probably wouldn't do it for every second. So it probably make more sense to maybe do it, you know, I think if I'm probably going to set this up on a little Raspberry Pi and follow up on this video, but I think I would set it to maybe hour every 12 hours, right? So that, you know, every other couple days, and I would set it up on my a little Raspberry Pi. So if I end up doing that, I'll send a follow-up video. Appreciate you guys watching. Hope you have a good one.